Hey guys, what's going on? Wanted to bring you fellas a video today. I've got the RS1 just cleaned up. I'm covered in mud. Just got back from Harlan, but I wanted to make a video kind of explaining how I believe you should take a stock RS1 and turn it into one of the baddest East Coast rides. I mean, it'll pretty much go anywhere. I ran a Lion's Den, Little Jagger, anything until you get to really binding scenarios. I think the RS1 is definitely a player, and wanted to make a video today on modifications I would make and in the order I would do so. So again, not a lot of times I'm going to have two of these things. This is mine here. I just picked this one up. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so as I was saying, this RS1's been a really capable rig for me. I would certainly recommend it to anybody trying to get into the sport on a budget. There's a couple cons, storage, and you might get lonely if you got nobody to ride with, but I wouldn't recommend doing that anyway. All around for the price point, I just don't know that you could go wrong, especially getting into it. You save a lot of money as far as different components. Your windshield's smaller, your cage is smaller, you only need one seat, you only need one harness. A lot of benefits to that because this isn't the cheapest hobby ever, and I think it's a great entry level. One, because of the reasons I just said, and then two, because the drivetrain is so stout. It's built for the turbo, but it only has 1,000 cc's, naturally aspirated. I think it's really a good package. So I've got a couple of things I would recommend for it, and kind of the order I'd recommend taking. I have some things I would not recommend doing. Mostly based on a reliability thing, but yeah, I guess let's get right into it. So one of the first things I'm always going to recommend any type of side-by-side RS1 or whatever is going to be a harness. So yes, this thing is bone stock, basically brand new, but it does already have harnesses in it. I just don't feel safe with anybody really playing with these things without a harness. So that's going to be the first thing I do. And this one I got a Simpson 4-point harness, which is pretty nice. And then in my normal ride, I got Beard 4 points. But yeah, that would certainly be one of the first things that I would pick up. Not a whole lot to it, relatively cheap, and it's just a safety thing. I think that's very important. So I'll be honest with you on this one, I'm not actually 100% sure. I would certainly recommend you get a roof. You end up, especially on the East Coast, and again, this is a East Coast specific. That's where I've grown up riding, just so where I have the most experience. I'm not telling, it'd be completely different in the dunes, in the desert if you're racing desert, but for the East Coast, I think you're going to want a roof just for the comfort of it. You're getting some rain sometimes, and you don't want to be just freezing your ass off and wet. So definitely one of the first things I would be getting is a roof, and as you can see, I have one past all this shit over here. From my factory cage, this will end up going on to the other ride. But yeah, that's certainly one of the things that I would do first, or that's the second thing I would recommend doing, is the roof. So I did kind of want to make a disclaimer on this. So the stock cage is honestly not bad in the RS1s. I've flipped this thing over multiple times and I never had any issues with it. The stock cage is still straight. I think I flipped it probably 6, 7, 8 times before I built the cage for this thing. As you can see, my fab skills are lacking here. When I rolled in Lion's Den, it broke one of the tabs off, but I'll fix that. But stock cage is good. The disclaimer I want to make, if you are wheeling these things pretty hard, you might want to go ahead and just put an aftermarket cage on it. That would be a safety thing. I'll say the RS1 is pretty good about it. I ran the stock cage for the longest time, but the combination I'm kind of recommending with the roof, and I'm going to recommend a glass windshield too if you keep the factory cage. I'll put a link for the windshield I'm talking about, but even throughout all those rolls, no bends in the cage. The roof held up fine. It was a Tusk roof, and then the glass windshield is just amazing because all the mud and such. These tires with no fender wells are really going to get shit all over the car, all over the windshield, and you'll end up scratching the plastic ones. Obviously, in this new cage I built, it doesn't have the ability for I don't have a glass windshield on it yet, but ultimately in the future I will. I think that would be one of the main disadvantages of going to an aftermarket cage is the glass windshield. So third thing I would recommend is a glass windshield for the factory cage if you go that route. Alright, so safety's taken care of. You got belts, you got windshield. Again, I'd recommend glass. Factory cage is good. If you go with an aftermarket cage, you're going to have more problems trying to source windshields and building a roof and different parts like that. But beyond that, you got a belt, you got a cage, you got a roof over your head. The next thing that the weak link on this thing that I found probably 5 hours from camp at Windrock is the tie rods. So I put these big ass tires on. I did it in the wrong order, right? So, and everybody does this shit, but I put the big tires on. I put 32s on this thing. But if you look, stock tie rods are just really toothpick-like, in my opinion. So I went ahead and upgraded these things to the Super ATV tie rods here. Pretty cheap fix, and you definitely want to fix that before you break them 5 hours away from camp, because that totally sucked. So yeah, that's the fourth thing I would recommend. You upgrade on the RS1. I think all the razors are going to have the same issue, but at least the 1000, so naturally aspirated stuff. But we'd go ahead and upgrade that for sure. All right, you got tie rods, cage, seat belts. Next thing I'm going to recommend, this will be number 5, is radius rods. So again, another toothpick factor from the stock one. These are actually not that bad. They're just the regular 1000 links. But if you look over here, I don't know if these are the bent ones or not. There's a bent one somewhere. But I went with L&W Fabs. And you're not going to bend these. I had them bound up super bad over the weekend, but you're not going to tear these things up. They're huge, they're beautiful, and they've been stout for about 2,000 miles at this point. So yeah, again, that's one thing I would do. That's fifth. Go ahead and upgrade your radius rods. So the RS1 comes with this weird front bumper that I just absolutely hate. As you can see, it just screws up your approach angle really bad. It sticks out super far so that you can mount your winch here. The winch just mounts on a plate. Sorry, my camera is too long here, but mounts up in here. And that would be fine. I believe the bumpers come from the factory like this. In my case, I built a cage to keep my approach angle, keep some safety here on the front. And then I mounted my winch on the front diff. It's going to take a little more work. You're going to need to relocate the battery, things like that. But a winch would be my sixth thing I'd recommend for your RS1, especially if you end up running harder trails. So I'm losing track of my numbers here. I believe this is the 7th item I'd recommend, and that's going to be wheels and tires. I'm going to actually do that as 7 and 8. So the factory wheels and tires do fine. I always think you could use a little bit more ground clearance. I'm going to a 32-inch tire here, and these are the Maxxis Rockzillas. I'm always going to call them Trapidors, but if you're new to this, you're probably watching the video, it's a Rockzilla 32-inch, okay? You could go with a 30. I think the 32 has been fine. I've had 0 issues with the drivetrain. I have 2,500 miles on the stock belt, which always keep a separate belt with you. That's a common issue with these side-by-sides, but I will say turbo drivetrain, and I believe the turbo belt, I got 2,500 miles on this thing, and it hasn't been easy miles, I can promise you that. But 32-inch tires is what I would go with. I would not go with a 35. This at full stuff, I've put it in tried to bind it up as many ways as I could to get it to rub, and it has not. These are the STI wheels and the Maxxis Rockzillas. Again, I'll always call them Trapidors. The only other tire I think I would ever even consider, and me personally, I'll never go against the Maxxis tire. That's just my personal preference for the East Coast. But the XTR 370 has done really well, but again, I would not go over a 32, and in this case, I have a 14-inch wheel. So, STIs, Rockzillas, hands down my favorite combo. I don't know that I'm going anywhere but there. So the only reason I'm doing 10 items is because it's kind of a round number, but I figured I'd pick up the pace a little bit. We're getting kind of nitpicky. The next couple items I would do is lights for night riding. which I say 9, and then a seat. The seat makes a huge difference. So in this case, I've got a amber up front. I guess I can turn it on, and I could turn on the rear lights as well. I have chase lights for this thing as well, and the reason for that is in the dust and everything when we're riding, especially at night, people will say it's annoying, but I'd rather be seen than be hit. So I like to ride those, and the amber just helps cut through the dust a little bit. These are little cheapo lights, but they certainly help you out. The RS1 comes with LEDs, factory, and they're pretty okay. They have a high and a low beam. As you can see, I don't have the rig on yet, but yeah, they do have a high and a low. But additional lighting would be something I would certainly go for. And then I guess going into 10 while we're here. Aftermarket seat, just much nicer, something I would certainly recommend. I was going to put these PRPs in it, but in comparison to this, definitely route I would go. Obviously the look, you can see how much lower my cage is on this thing. I built that myself. It's just kind of a safety thing. We end up running some hard trails, and I just feel safer with a real cage in it. But yeah, ultimately, if you're a beginner, you don't need to do all that. It's a lot more work than is needed, and you lose a lot of OEM features, like putting in a windshield or a roof that fits. Lights mount up very easily. There's a lot of different factors to that. So if you really want to get hardcore into it, cage is cool and all, and looks a lot better, but factory cage has a lot of benefits as well. One thing I want to do is kind of a bonus here. One thing I have not done yet, and that'll be my next step. I want to stay at 64-inch width. I'm not going to do a HCR kit, but if you look at these arms, this one here has got a nice little bend to it. Let's see if I can. But yeah, clearly that one's got a nice little bend to it. I'm going to do the Super ATV boxed arms. I'm just a little too cheap to go with the HCR kit. On the East Coast, the width is perfect. Everything about it is perfect. I would just stick with damn near stock radius rods, and then again, my bonus piece to this, and I'll make a video when I do it, would be the radius or the front boxed A-arms by Super ATV. So yeah, that's my pros, and then I got a couple cons I'm going to throw in here right here at the end. So this is mostly me, but I wanted to point this out as well. You know, obviously this thing's got a decent amount of stuff to it. We have a stock ride. Things I would not recommend on the East Coast. So tunes, you know, you can do exhaust, but it's a razor. I mean, it doesn't sound that cool. It just is annoying after a while, especially doing long rides. A tune is going to cause reliability issues. It's just not something I'm looking for. There's nothing worse than, you know, getting caught in the woods because your rig won't run, and you ruin not only your own day, but everybody else's day that's with you, trying to extract the vehicle, things like that. I would not do anything with the tune. I would not do exhaust. I guess you can get away with exhaust if you want to, but that's just my personal preference. I wouldn't put a big ass sound bar in it. That's just me. Again, something nobody likes pulling up to the party when some drunk loser's got their music blasting, some tractor clap. My personal opinion, you know, you do what you want to do. That's just me. And yeah, the other thing, 32-inch tires are where it's at. Going to a 35, everybody's tempted. It actually looks weird on these things. I've seen 35s. I think it would be awesome if it had an HCR kit, long arm, and had a lot more, you know, built transmission, all this. But the 32-inch, I can tell you, I can promise you, this thing's been beat on plenty, and it survives. It's been a very reliable vehicle. So stock axles, stock drivetrains. You know, don't do a bunch of engine mods to it, and you're going to have a really reliable vehicle. I can promise this thing has been through a lot, and I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. I've been doing this since the first Razors come out. By far one of the most reliable vehicles I've found. So those are some tips from me. You know, take it with a grain of salt. It is whatever you'd like to do. It's your ride. If you want to put whip lights on it and a massive light bar or sound bar and some, you know, you do what you want to do. But for me, East Coast wheeling, I think this is almost the ultimate ride. Only thing I'm missing is some boxed arms, and I think I'll really be good to go. But again, stock versus my ride here. If you have any questions for me, leave those in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate you watching. I really do. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you on the next one. just in case.
Yeah, just stay behind a tree gone over there, guy. Come on, Forrest Gump. You got it. Your driver's gonna drop one more ledge. That's it.
I got it, yo. We're fine.
Oh, nice. There you go. Perfect. Cut it back. Cut it back. Towards me. Straight up towards me. Oh, shit. I saved the video. I said, look, John, I saved the video. That's it. All right.